Hey, my name's Ethan Hayes. I'm 29, a white guy living in the heart of New York City, where every day feels like a marathon you didn't sign up for. The streets are alive with honking buses, flashing traffic lights, and that constant rush of people pushing through narrow sidewalks like they're late for the end of the world. Towering skyscrapers loom over everything, making you feel small no matter how hard you hustle. In this chaos, two people from completely different worlds were about to cross paths in a way neither of us could have predicted. I'm your typical freelance IT technician, the kind of guy who shows up when things break and disappears when they're fixed. I take gigs all over the city, law offices, coffee shops, you name it. My job involves troubleshooting networks, configuring servers, and dealing with system crashes that no one notices until they're knee-deep in panic. This morning, I was knee-deep in printer guts at a photo studio, wrestling with a massive inkjet that decided to jam right before a big deadline. By noon, I was rushing to a bakery where their POS system had frozen mid-rush hour, leaving customers grumbling and the owner sweating bullets. My backpack is my office. Tangled cables, portable hard drives, anti-static gloves, and a couple of chocolate bars for those skipped lunches. Life's quiet for me, no fancy titles, no corner office. I live alone in a cramped apartment in Brooklyn with my old tabby cat, Whiskers, who's probably the only one waiting for me at the end of the day. Clients rarely remember my name. I'm just the IT guy or the network fixer. It's steady work, pays the bills, but lately I've been scraping together extra cash. My mom's back home in upstate New York, dealing with heart checkups, and those medical bills don't pay themselves. On the flip side, there's Olivia Reed, 45, CEO of Secure Finance, one of those fintech companies that's all about digital wallets and secure transactions. I'd heard of her through a previous job fixing their old headquarters servers, but we'd never met face to face. She's the kind of woman who commands a room without trying, sharp gray suits, hair pulled back in a neat bun, always clutching her phone like it's an extension of her hand. She pitches to investors, seals multi-million-dollar deals, and gets those admiring yet wary glances from everyone around her. But power like that comes with isolation. She's divorced, has a grown kid living on their own, and spends her nights in a sleek high-rise apartment on the 34th floor, probably staring out at the city lights alone. That day, everything started with a glitch. Secure Finance's security system went haywire right before their executive retreat up north, a weekend getaway for the leadership team to strategize and recharge. All transaction data, user authentications, everything locked up. Phones were ringing off the hook in their office. I got the call from their assistant, Mia, who sounded frantic. "We need someone reliable, now." Their IT head, Jordan, vouched for me. "Ethan's the guy who fixed our old servers. He's solid." I showed up at their sleek midtown headquarters around 6 p.m., Nokia phone in hand, double-checking the job details. The lobby was all marble and glass with security scanners beeping as I passed through. Olivia met me there, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. She sized me up quickly, her expression all business. "You're sure you can handle this? This is critical infrastructure." I met her gaze steadily, no hesitation. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't have taken the job. Her hand paused on her tablet for a split second, like she'd expected pushback or excuses. She nodded curtly and led me to the server room, her presence filling the elevator like an unspoken command. The air was thick with the hum of cooling fans and blinking lights. I dove in, running diagnostics, tracing the issue to a deep flaw in the backup server. "This needs hands-on access to the core backups," I told her. "Remote won't cut it. Signal's too unstable." She crossed her arms, thinking. Then, out of nowhere, "Come with us on the retreat? Fix it there. Triple pay for the weekend." I hesitated. Retreats like that? They're for suits and strategy sessions, not guys like me with grease under their nails from printer repairs. I wasn't thrilled about rubbing elbows with executives in some mountain lodge, feeling out of place in my faded jacket. But the money. Mom's tests were coming up and I couldn't turn it down. "Deal," I said. 2 hours later, I was crammed in the back of a small charter bus, backpack wedged between my knees, surrounded by polished professionals chatting about market trends and quarterly goals. Olivia sat up front, occasionally glancing back through the rearview mirror. Our eyes met once, brief, unreadable. The bus wound north out of the city, leaving the concrete jungle for winding roads flanked by darkening forests. As night fell, the radio crackled with warnings. A massive snowstorm barreling in from the north, unusual for this time of year but fierce. Winds howled, visibility dropped. The driver gripped the wheel tighter as the road turned slick. GPS glitched. Other vehicles on the highway peeled off or turned back. "We should stop," the driver suggested, but there was nowhere, just endless trees and mounting snow. Then it happened. The bus hit a patch of black ice, tires screeching as it fishtailed. We slammed into a snowbank with a jolt that threw everyone forward. No one was hurt, but panic rippled through the group. Lights flickered, phones lost signal, batteries drained fast in the cold. "We're stuck," someone muttered. Olivia stood, taking charge. "Everyone stay calm. Check for injuries." I pulled out my offline map app, old habit from jobs in spotty coverage areas. "There are abandoned ranger cabins nearby, marked on old trails. We could hike to one." Murmurs of doubt, but Olivia nodded. "Lead the way, Alex, Ben. You two with us. The rest stay with the bus and flag help if it comes." We bundled up and stepped into the blizzard, wind whipping snow into our faces like needles. The trek was brutal, an hour of trudging through knee-deep drifts, visibility near zero. My boots sank with every step, backpack weighing me down. Olivia kept pace beside me, her breath visible in the freezing air. Finally, we spotted it. A weathered wooden cabin, door ajar, buried in snow but intact. Alex and Ben checked the perimeter and headed back to signal the bus group, leaving Olivia and me inside. The place was frigid, smelling of damp wood and neglect. A small fireplace in the corner, some dusty shelves. I scavenged dry logs from a corner pile and got a fire going, flames crackling to life. Olivia cleared a spot on the floor, dragging an old blanket over a rickety wooden bed frame. We sat by the hearth, the storm raging outside. She slipped off her heels, wincing at the red marks on her feet. I handed her my water bottle. "Drink this, it'll help." She managed a half smile. "I thought retreats were for relaxation, not survival movies." I chuckled. "Might make a good story later." She sighed, her guard slipping just a bit. For the first time, she wasn't the unbreakable CEO, she was just a woman, cold and exhausted. As the fire warmed us, the silence stretched. Outside, the wind howled like a beast. We were two strangers from opposite ends of the city, trapped in a forgotten cabin, and in that moment, the walls between our worlds started to crack. The flames in the fireplace flickered weakly, casting dancing shadows on the rough wooden walls. It was just enough to chase away the worst of the chill, but the wind still seeped through the cracks, carrying the sharp scent of snow and pine. I crouched down, adding another log to the fire, my hands trembling slightly from the cold that had seeped into my bones during the hike. The movements were deliberate, mechanical, something to focus on amid the surreal quiet. Olivia sat with her back against the wall, arms wrapped around herself, her expensive coat doing little against the biting air. She watched me for a long moment, not with the appraising eye of a boss evaluating a contractor, but with a genuine curiosity, like she was seeing me for the first time outside the fluorescent lights of her office. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable at first. It was just there, heavy with the storm's roar outside. "You don't strike me as the type to ask why I'm dragging my team on a retreat in the middle of a busy quarter," she said finally, breaking the quiet. Her voice was softer than I'd heard it before, stripped of the commanding edge she wielded in boardrooms. I shrugged, poking at the embers to coax more heat. People head out of the city for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it's not about resting, it's about not breaking under the weight of everything. She let out a quiet laugh, but it faded quickly into the crackling fire. "You sound like you've been there." I nodded, sitting back on my heels. When my mom had her first heart scare a couple years back, I kept grinding through jobs like nothing happened. Thought if I stopped, the whole world would come crashing down. Turns out it doesn't, but pretending you're fine sure wears you out. She turned her face away slightly, staring into the flames. After a pause, she spoke, her words barely audible over the wind. "I've been there too, but unlike you, I don't have anyone counting on me to come home. It's just me holding everything together because if I don't, who will?" The confession hung in the air, raw and unexpected. I could see the vulnerability in her posture, the way her shoulders slumped just a fraction, the armor of the CEO cracking under the isolation of the moment. I rummaged in my backpack for the portable kettle I'd packed as a just-in-case, old habit from jobs in remote spots, and boiled some water using the battery-powered heater. The 2 metal cups I found on a dusty shelf were chipped but clean enough. "No fancy tea here," I said, pouring the steaming water, "but it'll warm you up from the inside." She took the cup, her fingers brushing mine lightly, brief, accidental, but it sent a jolt through me. We both froze for a heartbeat, our eyes meeting before we pulled away. Neither of us acknowledged it. We just sipped in silence, the heat seeping into our hands. The storm intensified outside, snow piling against the windows like it was trying to bury us. The temperature in the cabin dropped noticeably, and I saw Olivia shiver despite the fire. She set her cup down, rubbing her arms. "Ethan." Her voice trailed off, hesitant. I looked over. After a long pause, she spoke in a whisper that almost dissolved into the howling wind. "Could I get under the blanket with you, just to stay warm?" It wasn't flirtation or anything provocative, it was pure necessity laced with embarrassment. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the powerful woman reduced to asking for something so basic, fearing misinterpretation. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "Only for warmth," I said evenly. "If it feels off at any point, we stop." She nodded, relieved. We shifted to the old bed frame, keeping a respectful distance under the threadbare blanket. No touching, but close enough to feel the shared body heat cutting through the cold. The proximity was strange, intimate without intention. In the dim light, she whispered, "In the office, no one ever sees me like this. Weak? Human." "And out there," I replied, "I'm not supposed to act like I matter. Just fix things and fade into the background." For the first time, we opened up without pretense. She talked about her divorce, how it had left her questioning if success was worth the emptiness. Her kid, grown and distant, pursuing their own life far away. The endless pressure of being the face of secure finance where one wrong move could tank everything she'd built. "I climb higher," she said, "but the air gets thinner. Lonelier." I shared my side, the freelance grind feeling invisible in a city that chews people up. Mom's health scares making me hyper-aware of how fragile everything is. I fix systems all day, I admitted, but my own life? It's just patched together, hoping nothing crashes for good. Our voices grew softer as the night wore on, the storm a constant backdrop. We laughed quietly at shared absurdities, like her dealing with entitled investors, me wrestling with ancient routers in dive bars. The barriers dissolved. She wasn't the untouchable CEO anymore, and I wasn't just the hired help. We were two people, stripped down by circumstance, finding common ground in our hidden struggles. By morning, the fire had died to embers and the wind had eased. A knock echoed through the cabin. Rescue team, finally. We emerged, blinking into the pale light, the group reuniting with relieved chatter. The retreat was canceled. Buses turned back to the city. But that night had shifted something irreversible. We'd seen each other's true selves, raw and unfiltered, in a way the bustling streets of New York never allowed. Back in New York, the city swallowed us whole again, like the storm had never happened. The bus ride home was tense but silent, everyone too exhausted to rehash the ordeal. We pulled into the garage under Secure Finance's headquarters just as dawn broke, the skyline glittering coldly under the first light. Olivia thanked the group curtly, her CEO mask firmly back in place, and disappeared into the elevator without a backward glance. I grabbed my backpack, hailed a cab to Brooklyn, and collapsed into bed, whiskers curling up beside me like nothing had changed. But everything had. That night in the cabin lingered like a ghost, replaying in my mind during the mundane grind of the following days. I dove back into my freelance gigs, fixing a crashed database for a law firm, untangling Wi-Fi issues at a startup, but my thoughts kept drifting to Olivia. The way she'd opened up, the vulnerability I'd seen beneath her polished exterior. Yet at the office, when our paths crossed for follow-up on the server fixes, it was like we'd reset to strangers. She'd nod professionally, discuss technical specs in clipped tones, and avoid eye contact that lasted more than a second. I played along, sticking to updates on the system patches, but it felt wrong, like we were both pretending the cabin hadn't stripped away our facades. The whispers started soon after. I overheard them in the break room while grabbing coffee. Did you hear? The CEO got stuck in that storm with the IT contractor. Yeah, retreat gone wrong. Wonder if she pulled strings to bring him along. One guy chuckled. Bet she was just using him for the tech support. Or maybe more. Who knows? The words stung like salt in a cut. I wasn't some opportunist climbing the ladder. I'd been there to do a job, and what happened in that cabin was real, not some calculated move. But doubt crept in. Did they see me as the guy from the wrong side of the tracks latching onto power? I shook it off, focusing on my work, but the rumors made every visit to the office feel like walking into a minefield. A week later, I couldn't take the tension anymore. I scheduled a late meeting to wrap up the final diagnostics, but really I needed to clear the air. We met in her office after hours, the city lights twinkling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. She looked composed as ever, typing away on her laptop. "Ethan," she said without looking up, "report ready." I set the folder on her desk but didn't sit. Look, if I'm making things awkward for you, I can bow out of the project. Hand it off to someone else. She finally met my eyes, her expression hardening. You think that's necessary? We had an incident, but we're professionals, don't cross boundaries. The word boundaries hit like a punch. What boundaries? I never took advantage of you. That night was about survival, about being human, not some power play. She turned away, staring out at the skyline. You don't get it, Ethan. The pressure I'm under. The scrutiny. One wrong step and everything I've built crumbles. I clenched my fists, frustration boiling over. And you don't get how it feels to be seen as the guy who's just trying to climb? Like I'm some nobody leeching off your status? We stood there, the silence thick and accusatory. Neither of us mentioned the real heart of it. The warmth we'd shared, the confessions in the dark, how we'd seen each other's raw edges for the first time. We didn't say we missed that connection, or that the city had forced us back into our roles like ill-fitting suits. Instead, we let the misunderstanding fester, words left unsaid turning into walls. After that, I started avoiding the office whenever possible, sending updates via email and handling remote fixes. Olivia threw herself into meetings, her schedule packed tighter than before, as if burying herself in work could erase the cabin. But at night, alone in my apartment with Whiskers purring on the bed, I'd replay it all. The fire's glow on her face, the way her voice softened when she let her guard down. I'd wonder why I hadn't pushed harder, why fear of labels had silenced me. And I knew, deep down, she was probably doing the same in her empty high-rise. We were hurting each other not because the feelings had vanished, but because we hadn't spoken them in time. The city moved on around us, indifferent, while the distance grew. It started on a Monday morning, the kind where the city wakes up grumpy under a slate-gray sky. I was nursing a coffee in my apartment, Whiskers batting at my shoelaces, when my phone buzzed with an urgent alert from Secure Finance's monitoring app. I'd set it up during the fixes. The system was under attack, a sophisticated hack locking down data, encrypting files, and threatening to leak sensitive transaction records. Stocks plummeted in pre-market trading. News outlets were already buzzing about a potential breach at one of the city's top fintech firms. My gut twisted. I'd spotted a vulnerability in the core protocols weeks ago during the retreat aftermath, but I'd flagged it in a report that apparently got buried under the post-storm chaos. I fired off a message to Jordan, the IT head. I can help, let me in. His reply was terse. Stand by, Olivia's calling the shots. Hours ticked by as I paced my living room, refreshing news feeds. The breach was escalating, clients panicking, regulators sniffing around. I knew I could crack it. I'd dealt with similar ransomware before on smaller gigs. But doubt nagged at me. After our blowup, would she even consider me? The distance we'd built felt like a chasm now, widened by unspoken regrets. By afternoon, Jordan called. She's bringing in an external team, big-name consultants from DC. Said it's too high profile for in-house. My heart sank. She knows I saw the hole early. Why not me? He sighed. Politics, man. Optics. After the retreat rumors? She can't afford to look like she's playing favorites. I hung up, staring at the wall. Favorites? Is that what they thought? That night in the cabin wasn't about leverage or climbing. It was real, a fleeting connection born from vulnerability, but now it felt like she'd chosen to erase it, to push me further into the shadows. The whispers I'd overheard before echoed louder. Using him for the fix. Poor guy's out of his league. Anger simmered, mixed with hurt. If she didn't trust me with this, what was left of whatever we'd glimpsed? The next day, the consultants fumbled. Headlines screamed, "Secure finance hack, millions at risk." Olivia held a press conference, her face a mask of calm assurance on my laptop screen. "We're mobilizing all resources," she said, but I could see the strain in her eyes, the same flicker I'd caught by the firelight. I couldn't sit idle. I emailed her directly. "I can fix this. Give me access." No reply for hours. When it came, it was cold. "We're handling it." That pushed me over the edge. I showed up at the office uninvited, badge still active from the project. Security let me through, but the lobby felt hostile. Stares from staff, murmurs trailing me to the elevators. I barged into the war room where Olivia and her team huddled around screens. "Ethan," she said, surprise flashing before her expression hardened. "This isn't the time." I ignored the others, Jordan, Mia, a couple of suits from DC, and met her gaze. "You know I spotted this flaw. Why bring in outsiders when I can end it now?" The room went quiet. She motioned for privacy, leading me to her office. Door shut, she turned, voice low and sharp. "You think I don't want to? But the board's watching, the media's circling. If I pull you in now, after everything..." "After what? The storm? The rumors?" I cut in, my voice rising despite myself. "You don't trust me?" Her eyes flashed. "It's not about trust. I'm protecting you, Ethan, from the fallout, from being dragged into this mess as the CEO's pet project." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "Protecting me by shutting me out? That's not protection, that's pushing me away. Like I'm some liability you regret." She stepped back, hurt flickering across her face. "You have no idea the pressure. One emotional decision, and I lose everything, my company, my reputation. I've already lost too much chasing feelings before." The words hung there, a dagger. Her divorce, the isolation she'd confessed in the cabin, it all rushed back. But so did my own pain, feeling invisible, undervalued, like I was always the fixer, never the equal. "And what about us?" I said quietly. "That night wasn't just survival. We saw each other, really saw. But now? You're acting like it never happened." Tears welled in her eyes, the first crack in her composure. She sank into her chair, voice breaking. "You think I don't want to choose you? Every day I fight the urge to call, to say I miss that warmth. But I've burned bridges before because I let feelings cloud judgment. I can't risk it. Not with you in the crossfire." I stood there, the fight draining out of me. The room felt smaller, the city noise outside a distant hum. "So we're hurting each other," I said slowly. "Not because we don't care, but because we didn't say it in time. Because fear got in the way." She wiped her eyes, nodding. "Maybe. But this crisis? I have to fix it my way." I left without another word, the door clicking shut behind me like a finality. But the next morning, everything shifted. An email from Olivia. "You're in, full access, and this." She'd gone public, announced in a memo that I was leading the recovery, citing my prior work. The board grumbled, rumors spiked, but she stood firm. I dove in, working from a makeshift station in their server room. 3 sleepless days of code dives, decryptions, and countermeasures. Coffee fueled me, adrenaline kept me sharp. By the end, the breach was sealed, data recovered, systems fortified. Exhausted but victorious, I packed up as the team celebrated quietly. Olivia found me in the hallway. "You did it," she said, her voice soft with gratitude, and something more. "We did," I replied. The air between us crackled, the misunderstandings laid bare, but for the first time since the cabin, hope flickered. That evening, after the dust settled on the hack recovery, I dragged myself back to my apartment, body aching from the marathon of code and caffeine. Whiskers greeted me with a lazy meow, weaving between my legs as I collapsed on the couch. The city hummed outside my window, indifferent to the chaos I'd just navigated. I half expected radio silence from Olivia, another wall rebuilt in the name of professionalism. But around 9 p.m., a knock echoed through the door. I opened it to find her standing there, coat unbuttoned, looking more human than I'd seen her since the cabin. hair slightly disheveled, no makeup, just raw exhaustion etched on her face. "Olivia?" I stepped aside, letting her in. She glanced around my modest space, the cluttered desk with tangled cables, the cat toys scattered on the floor, the faint smell of takeout lingering. "It's warmer here than I imagined," she said softly, shrugging off her coat and hanging it on the hook by the door. I managed a tired smile. "Because here, you don't have to be the CEO, no board watching, no optics to manage." She nodded, sinking into the armchair across from me. Her eyes met mine, holding longer than they had in weeks. "Ethan, I couldn't let today end without saying it. You saved us, not just the company, but me from my own fears." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "We saved each other. But back there in the office, why shut me out?" She looked away, fingers twisting in her lap. "I was scared of losing control, of the world seeing me as weak for choosing with my heart. I've built walls for so long, after the divorce, the endless climbs. But that night in the cabin, you saw through them, and it terrified me." I reached out, hesitating before taking her hand. It was cool, but she didn't pull away. "I get it. I've felt invisible my whole life, fixing things from the shadows, never stepping into the light. But with you, I felt seen, not as the IT guy, but as me." Tears glistened in her eyes. "I miss that. The warmth, the honesty, no titles, no gaps, just us." We sat like that, hands intertwined, the silence speaking volumes. No rushed promises, no labels slapped on hastily. Just acknowledgement. The age difference, the worlds apart, the risks. But also the pull that had drawn us together in a blizzard and held us through a crisis. "We don't have to define this tonight," I said. "But I'm done pretending it didn't happen." She squeezed my hand. "Me too. Whatever this is, it's real. And I'm choosing it. With you." Outside, New York carried on, cold and relentless. But in that moment, we finally spoke in time, bridging the divide, not with grand gestures, but with quiet truth.